Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to InnoVEX 2026. And we're now ready to begin our today's session, AI Compute Arena Global Investment Collaboration for Hardtech Elite. Our AI competitive frontier has shifted from the software algorithm to silicon hardtech, and our ICT supply chain today has entered into a global collaboration era. In 2026, scaling hardtech doesn't just require capital, but a strategic global alliance. So we are here to synchronize business intelligence with breaking through innovations and define the strategic roadmap for these physical AI days. And we are very honored to be surrounded by visionary leaders, investors, and government officials to gather here and to strengthen our global tech ecosystem. And now, to remember this very special moment of the day, before we begin, we would like to take a group photo to remember and to commemorate. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Mr. Yuan-Ping Huang from Applied Ventures onto the stage first. Let's welcome him. Mr. Olivier Rousseaux from imec. Please come onto the stage. Mr. Andy Lombard from Tesoro Venture Capital. Welcome. Mr. Hayata Okubo from Plug and Play Japan. Mr. Simon Fang from Darwin Ventures. Mr. Walter Liu from Applied Ventures. And Jeremy Lai from Plug and Play Taiwan. And last but not least, Mr. Olivier Rousseaux from imec onto the stage. Mr. Andrew, please. And also, not forgetting our Sakura from TCA, our organizer, to come onto the stage to join our fellow moderators, speakers, and panelists. All right, so please listen to our cue. 看一下这样的站位 OK 吗 OK, I think our saying come closer to each other. Okay, we have to move to your left, to 往左边站一点点。我们看一下挥手的摄影师，确认一下这个定位。Okay, show your best smile. Look into our photographer in the middle. 3, 2, 1. Let's do another one and do a thumbs up together to today's InnoVEX 2026. 3, 2, 1. Thumbs up to our AI Compute Arena Forum. One more. Video, ma. So maybe we can do a thumbs up. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay, let's do it. Listen to my cue. We push out. We push. Thumbs up to AI Compute Arena Global Investment Collaboration for Hardtech Elites. Do we get all the photos and videos? All right, thank you all the guests. Please kindly return to your seats, and YP, if you can kindly stay on the stage as we'll be moving on to your keynote session. So allow me to introduce. YP is a leader who decodes complex world of semiconductor investment that provides a strategic capital fuels industry's growth. And his keynote session today will be powering the future through global investment innovation. So do you need the stand or
I get that.
Sure. And the floor is yours.
Okay. How's everybody this morning? Thank you for coming here. And then right now I'll spend probably 20 minutes to just give you a flavor of what we do at Applied Materials and as the corporate venture arm of Applied Materials, how we try to collaborate not just with our portfolio companies, but also partners around the globe to push for the next innovation in this whole AI kind of ecosystem. All right, looks like there is a lot of slides. Okay, so I'm required by our corporate to show this slide. I'm not going to read through it. Just take what I said with a grain of salt. And I think, for the past few days, you've already seen, heard everything. It looks like the promise of AI is finally taking shape, and it will literally affect every aspect of our life. Of course, I will be the first one to admit that I am not a heavy AI user yet, but I know that in a few years, I will probably not leave without the AI agent helping me to be more productive, facilitate my life. It's very interesting because it's an interesting parallel with the smartphones. I'm actually a very late adopter of smartphones. I got my first iPhone 6 back in 2014 because before that, I was a graduate student. I was like, well, how come in the world I would need to have, nonstop access to the internet, like second by second? But then once I use it, I got hooked. And then right now I cannot live without checking my phone every 5 seconds. So I totally think it will be happening the same thing with the AI. And actually, we've already seen some of the examples that's happening right now. Here you can see that back in 2025, Google CEO said 30% of the new code is made by AI. And then Microsoft was saying like 20 to 30%. Fast forward to earlier this year, in Google, they're right now, Sundar is saying 75% of new codes is generated by AI. And in Snap, they're saying 65%. So that's a huge jump with just less than 12 months kind of like time frame. And on the right-hand side, you can see that this is a survey done by Cisco of 200-something IT and cybersecurity experts with regards to the adoption of agentic AI. Now, as you can see, the actual production is still relatively small at 5%, but the vast majority of the IT leaders they surveyed have some kind of plan to introduce agentic AI into their workflow. And then I think at the bottom, you can see this is a study done by Waymo. It is based on hundreds of thousands of miles driven like driverless. And you can see, as expected, it's probably a little bit hard for a human being to admit it, but machines seem to be a much better driver than human being. And it lowers like 92% to 80-something% different kind of incidents. And remind you, this is only from the perspective of passengers in a car. They also have similar statistics of the pedestrians and other users on the road, and they see similar reduction in accidents. I know that there is a little bit of hiccup of Waymo recently. They suspended service on freeways, and then when it's storming outside, they also suspended. So I think the point is it is making great progress, and we are not there yet. So you actually need more innovation, more disruptive technology, and I think to Jensen's points a couple of days ago, more collaboration among the ecosystem to really push the envelope. And this is according to a survey or a forecast of McKinsey that the AI will drive tremendous economic value by 2020, by 2030. It's been, I think the numbers is probably updated every day. And basically, all of this, starting from data center all the way to renewable energy, there's multi-trillion dollars of economic value that can be unlocked by AI. And it's all driven by demand for higher volume, more powerful chips across different segments. And I think as the host mentioned at the beginning of the session, right now we're really entering an era where the innovation in hardware, especially chip, is actually required and the major driver for what you can do with AI. And we still have some major challenges, so especially on the energy challenge, because I think everybody saw the report that AI in data center can gobble up to 6% or even more of the total electricity in just a few years. Being born and raised in this small island in Taiwan, we have our fair share of scary scenarios of power outages and other incidents. So it is very urgent for us to trying to solve the energy efficiency part of the equation. And then, of course, the technology. I think as the chips become more and more kind of complicated, more and more exotic materials, and then 3D integration, advanced packaging, all this, it will require fast, more effective collaboration, innovation across the board. And then, of course, with AI comes with the more kind of non-hardware kind of aspect of things like ethics and bias, security, job scales, and regulation. Pretty sure that while we can start to think about it, it's not really kind of like our main kind of bread and butter. Try to solve those. So I think for the rest of the talk, I will just focus on the hardware part of the things, and by giving a little bit of flavor on what Applied Materials does and what we work with Applied Materials and our partners across the board. So we do have 4 different business units or businesses. The biggest one is semiconductor systems, where we have equipment tools for all the fancy kind of like material manipulation you can think of at nanoscale precision, thousands of layers, very reliably and repeatably. We also have Applied Global Services and Display. And then belonging to the CT organization, we are constantly looking for the next inflection point, how to leverage our expertise in material engineering to drive the next frontier across different technology areas. We have $28-something billion revenue last year, and more than 10% was dedicated to R&D spending. We have 36,500 employees across 25 countries, and we hold more than 23,000 patents. With the demand of AI chips, I think a lot of university labs or a lot of scientists can actually make pretty fancy devices at very, very small scale. But for this whole AI to realize its promise, you actually need to make transistors at Armstrong precision at very, very large industrial scale. And that requires the scalability, the reliability, and the repeatability. And that's where we see a lot of interesting startups, and they make pretty decent demo devices. But when it comes to high volume production, this is probably one of their biggest pain points. And with that, I'm really happy to share that I think this year we will start to run this ITIC Center. This is a $5 billion investment committed by our corporate. And it is near completion in our site in Santa Clara. An idea is that you will have 180,000 square feet of clean room and supporting labs. And it's not only for Applied Materials, but also for our partners, for universities, and from the ventures perspective, also with the participation of startups. And there you will have the lineup of the most advanced applied tools that can help you from your prototype devices to solve the manufacturing processes for high volume launch. And it is actually adopting a new kind of like innovation model. It used to be you develop something in university, and then after like 5 to 7 years of foundational research, you do proof of concept, and then trying to move to high volume production. And that would take anywhere between like 10 to 15 years. With the ITIC Center, and the idea is with the co-localization of the equipment and talent, not just for Applied, but across the board from our partners. And more importantly, with the help of AI tools, we hope to shorten that time frame for more than half. And this is kind of like a major thread of when I look at the AI kind of like revolution, especially for research and development, is that it's kind of like yin and yang. On the one hand, our innovation can help to drive new solution, new hardware for next generation kind of AI products. But conversely, we are also actively looking, evaluating, and adopting AI tools to make us more effective and more efficient in driving the next generation. So I think the hope is that they will become kind of like a virtuous cycle to accelerate innovation, accelerate iteration, to develop more useful tools, not just for us, but for everybody. And then a little bit about Applied Ventures. So, with the corporate, with the Epic Center, with the collaboration that's driven by business units, we at Applied Ventures is also an important part of our innovation engine. So we can invest up to $100 million a year. We are very flexible, stage flexible, check flexible, and then we have almost 100 global investments during our 20-something years history. We can lead, and we can co-invest. And recently, we just had an IPO, making our rocks in Korea a couple of weeks ago. And there's also major M&A in our portfolio company. And we look for both financial return and the strategic relevance to our core business. Right now, we are looking at new inflections, not just in semiconductor and display, but energy efficient compute, physical AI, optics, photonics, software, Industry 4.0, and sustainability. And this is a team. We have 8 investment professionals. Most of us have actually a technical degree. And we have one guy, Steve, in Europe. Europe has become a major source of our investment portfolio companies for the past, I think, 3-4 years. 40% of our new investments came from Europe. And we also partner with corporate VC, top-tier financial VC, and then the limited partners across the globe. So it's really a global effort trying to bring the innovation in semiconductor and related area to Applied Materials. And then the other thing that we did is kind of unique to us, is that we do have regional funds where we fundraising from external limited partners with a more focus on regional ecosystem. So Walter and I, we run a co-GP fund in Taiwan in collaboration with ITIC. In addition, we also have 2 funds in Korea. And this is the way for us to kind of drive more regional specific focus innovation. And I will just end with this slide. It's, this is probably already been said 1,000 times. It takes a village to raise a child. So I think in terms of like driving the innovation in AI, it's really kind of like a two-way kind of collaboration, right? On the one hand, the startups, they would develop new tools, new models for not just productivity, but also simulation, robotics, automation. And then there's also a lot of startups working on new cooling solutions, the infrastructure side. And they do need somebody who can help them to provide some basic enabling technologies, funding, and then the domain knowledge. This is especially pertinent when we look at some of the really interesting physical AI simulation startups. They have their own kind of like proof of concept in one of the area, but because of the booming growth in semiconductor industry, all of them want to do something for helping optimize, for example, semiconductor manufacturing processes. But it will be like Applied Materials or similar kind of like hardware player to provide them with the domain knowledge on the chamber, on the tool, that then they can adopt their software solution to our manufacturing need. So it is really kind of like a two-way street. And I guess the takeaway is that nobody can do it alone. Just like Jensen said the other day, it took 150 suppliers to make possible the Vera Rubin kind of like server rack. And I think going forward, the collaboration across the board will just become more and more critical. So if you have good ideas, please come to talk to us. Feel free to reach out to us. We are always open to new innovation innovation, new ideas, not just in semiconductor, but beyond. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, YP. I think we're all clear that in this physical era, AI era, the capital itself must be super precise as the technology. Thank you. Please kindly return to your seats, please. Collect the mic. All right, our next speaker will focus on telling us the blueprint to build upon it. So coming from imec, the world's premier hub for nano electronics and digital technology, he sits at the very heart of the semiconductor R&D. And our speaker, who is the director of venture department at imec, will walk us through the Lab-to-Fab blueprint. Let us welcome Mr. Olivier Rousseaux onto the stage.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the warm introduction. Thanks you also, Yuan-Ping, for your presentation. Many shared views that we have, and I'm keen also to see what the other speakers have to say. So I'm here representing imec. I'm leading the venturing efforts at imec. imec is really the place on Earth where the blueprint for Lab-to-Fab has been invented, developed, and implemented in the past decades. Just as a very quick introduction, imec was founded in 1984 with a mission to drive the innovation roadmap on CMOS. And so since the beginning of imec, it's almost the beginning of semiconductor scaling. We have been the place where Moore's law has been implemented. It's not something we do on our own. That's something that we have kept doing with the whole industry. So the whole ecosystem of semiconductors works with us at imec under one roof to define the next generations of semiconductors. And when I say the whole ecosystem, I mean not only the end users of the semiconductor technologies, the system companies like Apple or Sony or any other consumer brand, but I also mean all the companies that are involved in the manufacturing and development of semiconductors. The world's major foundries, TSMC, Global Foundries, and others work with this. The tool developers work with this. The material developers work with this. The fabless companies work with this. Jointly, what they do under our roof is defining the next generation of semiconductors and then bringing those innovations to the supply chain across the globe. So since the beginning, indeed, like we've been the place where the whole ecosystem collaborates to drive the frontier of innovation in semiconductors, implementing Moore's law. And so what do we have to do with ventures? Maybe in the current context, Yuan-Ping has been stating that. I'm not going to insist on it. The new big thing in compute, of course, and very clearly is AI. It is disrupting everything and everyone in our industry. But I want to stress a few points that are really substantial and important for venturing and for deep tech in the new era of AI. The last time we had such a disruption was the advent of internet, which was in the early 2000s, just before in the late 90s. The type of disruption that we are confronted with here is it's a different beast, it's a different type. The advent of internet was, in terms of sheer technology, it was primarily about letting computers talk to each other. So it was a wave of disruption where the hardware and the fundamental innovations required were disrupting communication between computers. That means going, from plain telephone to ADSL to VDSL to fiber. For mobile phones, it was going from 2G to 3G, 4G, 5G, pushing the data rates. For all the rest, it was simple compute units that were with a smart software, able to display the right information and to guide people in the information they receive. So the core of the innovation in internet era has been primarily software that you could embed on your computer or on your handheld and serve the business better. So it was primarily business model innovation driven and served by software innovation. About AI, it's something totally different. The power of AI is huge, it's gigantic, it is screaming to get to us, but currently it is constrained by the laws of physics. It is extremely compute intensive, power intensive, so the very unfortunate fact about AI is that today, if we want to run it, we need to have those huge data centers where all the inference is done. They are extremely expensive, extremely energy inefficient, so it calls for disruption. AI wants to be in this device. AI wants to be on your mobile phone, but just can't be there today. So to disrupt that, you need deep tech, hard tech disruption that not everybody on Earth can do, which is the reason why AI disruption for venturing is a great news. So, and that's about those slides here. So what you need to be really disruptive in AI, you need to have access to the most advanced disruption in semiconductors. Not something you can get across the corner, not something you can get by 5 people in a garage that are starting with an ambition. You need more than that. And so what you need to have, you need to have access indeed to thorough intellectual property, advanced process technologies. You need to have chip design excellence. You need to be able to do prototyping, and not only simple prototypes, but prototypes that would be able to convince your end customer to adopt your technology. And eventually, and very key, you need to have access to manufacturing. You were mentioning about like good university professors that can disrupt some cheap ideas. They can make a few samples, a few prototypes that are really jaw-dropping oftentimes. But if you want to solve the data centers, you need to be able to manufacture that at scale very quickly, or you remain just something interesting, but it does not impact the world. So in venture land, what happened with the AI disruption? For a long time, the name of the game was creating the ventures. Once they were created and funded, they would go on their own. So it was about the startup setup, having a proof of concept, having a strong signal from the market that you can do what you're planning to do, having the seed capital and the right funding team, and usually you were with those ingredients ready to go. Many venture studios and accelerators have been working with this paradigm in the past period. In the AI era, the scale-up becomes the bottleneck, becomes a more important aspect. And so to be able to scale up a venture, you need to have complete access to manufacturability and supply chain, not something that you can command so easily, especially when you're a young venture. To give you an example, you are a 2-year-old startup, you have a disruptive concept, and you want to bring that to the market, but you need semiconductor innovation. You can come to Taiwan, you can speak with TSMC, and try to convince them to change the settings of the clean rooms to make your 10 wafers. I wish you a lot of luck. This is not likely to happen anytime soon, right? But yet you need it to be relevant on the market. So access to infrastructure, to industrial scaling is key. But then the last one, ecosystem and market. It does take a village to raise a child. It does take a global village to raise a venture. Because today, semiconductor ecosystem is not located in one location. You have important portions, of course, here in Taiwan. The US is very important. Europe is also important. And if you want to succeed, you need to be able to move the needle and the wavefront of innovation across the supply chain, across the globe. So you need to be really global to achieve that. So imec in all of that, well, we're sort of blessed that imec moving the needle in a whole ecosystem across the globe. That's been our bread and butter for the past 42 years now. Since 1984, that's what we have been busy doing at imec, working with a whole ecosystem to adopt new disruptive concepts and make them proliferate in the supply chain. That's what we keep doing now, but we now start to do that also with young ventures that are moving the needle on a global scale. So what you have on this picture, it's the headquarters of imec. We have quite some substantial infrastructure. In fact, that's probably the only place on Earth where you would find all of that. We are a research center of 6,000, is it written on this? I know, 6,500 researchers that are doing semiconductor research. We have infrastructure, 3.5 billion euros worth of clean room equipment, 12,000 square meters of clean room, and we are building an extension. We have over 250 tools. Those numbers, why do they matter? We have the latest and greatest semiconductor equipment at imec, the latest EUV machine of ASML. The very first product they made was for Samsung. The second they made was for us. It's in our clean room. Why does it matter? Like the semiconductor equipments usually are so pricey that when someone's going to buy them, it's to make production in large series. We have the whole tool set, but we are the only place on Earth where all the tool series is available, not for production, but for research and development and for low volume production. That's quite unique when we travel the globe. We don't see places where you have the same complete set of equipment for the purpose of developing new concepts and making low volume production. The success is quite big, so the fab is capacity limited. So what we are doing now, we are planning extension of the fab. We are making an additional 2.5 billion euros investment for a pilot line that will drive low volume production. And on top of it, we're building another foundry in Spain for more exotic materials and advanced processes that you cannot host in a classical clean room. So what imec does for ventures, I'm going to have two parts to this section. The first part here, it's iSeedling by imec. It's a division of imec that is really meant to help companies that need access to semiconductors but do not focus themselves on semiconductor development to get access to the supply chain. So what iSeedling does, it is a service organization hosted inside imec that supports innovators and disruptors that need access to semiconductor, depending on their internal capabilities and access to supply chain, we do many things for them. We can do the development of the silicon, we can do the qualification, setting up the supply chain, gaining access to the foundry, and really orchestrate all of that for them or outsource. We can do the design, the simulation, the backend, the testing, the packaging, all of that can be done. So young ventures that they have a disruptive idea but don't have the right competencies in-house to drive their own silicon development, they can outsource that to imec. We will gladly do it for them. The type of things we do, of course, the classical ASICs, CMOS technology with access to the key leading foundries like TSMC, but also we do more advanced and more exotic aspects like photonics integrated chips. A lot of optical compute companies, for instance, now need to develop some custom things. We do that gladly with them. We also do some custom wafers like post-processing. Imagine like meta surfaces on top of a display or additional layers on the back end of a chip or of a wafer to realize some advanced functions. And then we also do a lot of advanced 2.5 and 3D packaging for more complex systems that require integration of different types of chips and chiplets. With ITIC, we can give young ventures access to the key leading foundry. So I was telling you about the problem of a founder that wants to go to TSMC. He will not get a say on his own, but ITIC acts as a demand aggregator. We can give access to the most advanced nodes to anybody who is able to work with this and gain them access to TSMC. But we work also with UMC, Sintera, X-Fab, and a few others. Also important, imec, our own name, has been put amidst the other commercial foundries because now what we do increasingly is developing and manufacturing chips in low volume, even for end products. A very simple example. So when you develop a dedicated product, if you don't hit large volumes, it's going to be hard to convince the supply chain to adopt your technology. A good customer and partner of ours is ASML. ASML is known for the EUV machines. In the EUV machines, they need an EUV imager that imec has developed for them. The global market for EUV imagers is really, really, really thin. You won't convince the commercial foundries to adopt the process. So we are ourselves manufacturing the EUV image sensors that go eventually in ASML's machine. So we are able to do that. We can do commercial products when the scale remains, high value add and small volume. So the proven deliveries, that's the range of deliveries we do. ITIC is positioned in a mid-range. You can do 50 dies per year with ITIC. You can go up to 50 million plus dies per year. We will support you. Some statistics here. Here, in terms of a number of examples of companies, young startups that are working with imec to get access to the supply chain in that area. So here are a few names. So that's a general service. So if you are in venturing, if you're a VC, if you're a university lab, an accelerator, if some of your companies have a need to develop their own semiconductors and have a hard time finding the right resources, competencies of supply chain, do not hesitate. You can contact us. You can contact Mavis, who's there. She's in the region. Hi, Mavis. So she's in Taiwan for imec, and she will, gladly guide you through what imec can do for you and your ventures. The second part here about venturing, this is what I have the pleasure and honor to lead myself. This is what imec does for ventures. imec does two things for ventures. The first thing, which has been our historical pillar, is the creation and co-creation of venture spin-offs, startups. So it means what we do with my team, we seek inside imec and outside imec fresh ideas that have a strong disruption potential that can be the foundation of a deep tech company, startup. When the disruption is sufficient and the market is promising, my team goes ahead and helps the creation of the company. That means developing out the product roadmap, getting access to the first prospect customers in imec's network. It means hiring the founding team, so typically supplementing the young founders with more experienced executives that can help driving the roadmap, that can help driving the fundraise. We help them prepare the pitch deck, and we help them go out and find the money with VCs to have their seed round closed and get going. So that's something that we do day in, day out. People from imec, but also people from research centers and universities across the globe come to us to help to ask us to help them found their company. The second aspect of what we do, it's a more recent development, is working with young external companies, startups and spin-offs in the deep tech semiconductor space. So we have a team that we're deploying globally, of course, people in Europe, but we also have a team in the US, 3 people in the US, 2 on the West Coast, 1 on the East Coast. We're developing across Europe, in the Middle East. And here again, Mavis is your relay locally. In Asia, we are just starting to do that. What do? We seek early stage companies, typically seed or Series A, sometimes a bit later. Companies that have a strong founding team, a strong market they go after, that are already invested by VCs, but where we identify that bringing to the table an imec deep tech semiconductor disruption is going to be to make the venture a much more powerful version of themselves. That imec's disruption can either help them drastically accelerate their development by gaining access to pre-existing imec IP, by accelerating the Lab-to-Fab transition, or that it can be a much better version of themselves because we do bring a deep tech component that they did not have to make the product higher performance, more disruptive, and eventually make it a stronger company. In those cases, we seek to treat those companies like our own ventures with a very close collaboration, a strategic collaboration between imec and that company. Important, in our ecosystem, right next to imec, we have imec Expand. It's a pure play financial VC that some of you will know, that has been facilitated by imec. It's not a classical CVC because we're not, the money in Expand does not come from us. It comes from LPs, like for any financial VC. So imec Expand is, in the meantime, 420 million euros funds, one of the biggest you would find in Europe for early stage semiconductors and deep tech companies. It's the second fund already. We are in the process of raising a third fund. The first two funds have had quite a lot of success so far. So a key partner, and oftentimes when we cooperate with a company, imec Expand can look at a company and invest in a company too. So this slide is about the specific way how imec can make the life of ventures easier. On the left-hand side of the slide, you see what imec has to offer. On the right-hand side is why it matters. So our world-class infrastructure, the clean rooms that we have, this is really the one thing that you will not be able to find anywhere. Why does it matter? So in the first place, I was indeed telling about us having all the commercial industrial tools available. It means that by design, innovation made at imec can be brought to the supply chain. If you talk about the university lab, people can have fantastic, bright, and disruptive ideas and show you things that are truly jaw-dropping. But if you dig a bit deeper, you will realize that that idea to bring it in the semiconductor manufacturing supply chain is going to be a challenge or impossible. At imec, our sandbox is made out of the tools that are in the supply chain. So whenever we invent something by design, it can be brought to the supply chain because it was done with the very same tools that will serve to make it at scale and at volume. First point. The second point about the same element, it's not because what you do can be scaled and brought to the supply chain that it will be scaled and brought to the supply chain. You need to be adopted by the manufacturers. You need to show market relevance. It's oftentimes a chicken and egg problem. Your customers will not engage if you don't have advanced prototypes, if you don't have advanced statistics on your processes. They will keep you at bay. If you don't have a customer, the foundries will not want to serve you. So we help break that vicious circle by doing low volume manufacturing. For the young companies, we not only develop the process to do their devices, but we also produce them in small volumes to be able to break through in the market to serve the first customers, prove the market traction. Once the market traction is proven, the commercial foundries will be really keen to adopt your technology to serve those customers. The second point of our strength is our brain power. 6,500 people that are truly specialists in semiconductor developments. When you're a young venture, you don't always have the possibility or the luxury to hire the greatest and best scientists to make the disruption you need. So when you need to have a deep tech disruption, imec is really happy. Well, either we already have developed IP and background that can be used to accelerate your development, or if we haven't done it yet, we have the perfect team to do the development that has been identified, and then we gladly cooperate in a dedicated fashion at design or development on demand for the ventures to achieve the disruptions that they need with the very best scientists that the venture would have a hard time recruiting themselves. And then the third point, it's our ecosystem. Second to none, we have over 650 industrial partners across the globe, across the supply chain, across the value proposition of semiconductors. It is key for the success of a venture. We can help the ventures that team up with us get access to their prospect customers, the OEMs, the hyperscalers, and the likes, but we can also help them gain access to the supply chain and ecosystem partners that they need to strive. The outcome, the results that we have achieved. So the operations of venturing have been started about 8 years ago now. So in the meantime, we have global presence. Of course, strong foot in Europe, which is our headquarters, but also in the US, Asia, and Middle East, where we are developing. We have a team of 15 venturing specialists that are either building ventures or supporting external ventures to see how imec technology can disrupt what they do and be brought to the table to make it a stronger version of themselves. We have developed a whole process to select and develop ventures. In the meantime, so we have done 40 plus ventures. We have looked at more than 500 ventures ideas to get there. In terms of outcome, we have already now 2 unicorns, both of them in the US, 9 soonicorns. It's a baby unicorn. It's neat. It's cute. It's companies that are more than 100 million euros of valuation, where we see a path to unicorn within the next 5 years. So we have 9 of them. Our companies have raised collectively last year 1.8 billion euros, and we have on the spin-offs only more than 500 jobs created in the past period. Here is some of the recent news. So we see the first exits. We've had Nubis Communications that has been acquired by Sienna. Celestial AI has been acquired by Marvel. If we have the time, I'm just going to spend a moment on this one. It's a great example. So Celestial AI, it's a company which is really at the heart of AI inference. They have developed a technology to replace the communication engine between HBMs and GPUs. Instead of copper, you make it with the photonics fabrics that they have developed. So Celestial is a company 5 years old. From the seed, they are with us. imec Expand has been investing in a seed round in close partnership with Dave, their CEO, Dave Latovsky. They came to imec to develop the technology. They took advanced devices, a modulator developed by imec that we had pre-existing that they adopted for the technology, and a number of semiconductor silicon photonics concepts that were available at imec in our R&D foundries, but that you were not able to manufacture anywhere commercially. So we've been teaming up with them since the beginning to develop the product and the concept, leveraging imec IP and infrastructure. Based on the prototypes that we made with them, they managed to gain the attention of some of the hyperscalers. They had the first POs, and then with that in their hands, the hyperscalers and our technology, we went to commercial foundries jointly to transfer the process developed at imec into the commercial foundry, which is now going to make production in volume for them, which caught the attention of the market. So it's an exit at $5.5 billion in 5 years' time, something that we are happy to repeat anytime you like. And then the last one, Ferrotech, has been acquired by a Taiwanese company, Realtek, last year. Here is a few of the recent updates on the portfolio. PsiQuantum, Accelera, Atlas, Hypervision, Vertical Compute, QAnt, a number of fundraisers taking place last year. A new partnership that we're soon to announce, Density.ai. Stay tuned. It's a young company from the US. They have a strong intention to disrupt AI inference. They have a very good team coming from the Dojo team of Elon Musk. So I would say stay tuned. There's going to be more news to come with them, and we're going to be a key partner of theirs to help disrupt the frontier in AI compute. And here is a view of the broader portfolio of companies that we have. So on those words, thank you for your attention. I'm around, Mavis is around, so we are glad to speak with you if you have, cases, ideas, companies that you want to share with us and see if I can help make a difference. We like making a difference, so we are glad to look at it and analyze it in details. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, Olivier, for your sharing and diving into imec Ventures. Thank you so much. And now we'll look at the innovation that ignites them. Our next speaker is a titan of technology with his legendary career from 3M to Meta. He's a scientific innovator who understands how to transform sort of accidental breakthroughs to scalable platform. Now, please put your hands together to welcome Mr. Andrew Ouderkirk, principal at IO Innovation, to come onto the stage. Let's welcome him.
So thank you. We just heard in the previous talks the idea of creating disruptions, creating new technologies that really change the direction and the timing of markets. And what I want to talk about is how do you identify those early on and how do you accelerate those? The disruptions, breakthroughs, very similar things. So this is a very practical talk based on doing experiments within large companies, first at 3M, then at Meta, now in our own startup. So the question is, how do we create an ecosystem of sponsors, suppliers, partners, and customers? All these things, as we just heard, are critically important. How do you do this as a small startup? Developing a high-performing team. No raise of hands here, but think of the teams that you've worked on. Have you ever worked on a high-performing team? This is one that creates 10x results. Wasn't that a joy? What do you do to consistently develop and sustain high-performing teams? And finally, how do you get support for both the short term and the long term? It's pretty easy to get support for the short term. Big companies, small companies. It's hard to get support for the long term. How do you do both? So just to connect with the audience, these are some of the programs I've led in the past. I'm a scientist, number one. And so quite frankly, when I came into a company, when we talked about innovation, I was skeptical. I was like, how much of this is really in your control? How much of it is just happenstance and luck? How much of it is skill? And so as a scientist, I decided to run an experiment. And what we did is we identified what we thought would be breakthrough innovations, and we put those through the processes of developing a team, accelerating their development, and seeing how we did. And the next product technology, we repeated that, each time improving on the process. And throughout my career, we've gone through quite a wide range of technologies. If you look at market studies on these technologies, total sales are well over $20 billion. So these technologies, as an aggregate, have had a huge impact on their markets. And they ranged everywhere from consumer to high-tech to 2.6 quantum wells. So quite a range of technologies as we're trying to integrate these. As I said, most of these are 3M. Towards the end, I transitioned with Tesla and into Meta. And then lastly, if you look at the bottom right, these are their startups. And what we're trying to do is develop AI assistants for innovators where humans stay at the center of the process. We're also developing physical products as a result of taking silicon foundry technology and applying that in a completely different field. So I've been teaching classes for several decades now. One class that we were teaching was to CTOs, and I really captured one of the CTO's comments with my partner. We need to do the incremental to stay alive and the non-incremental to avoid being killed. And so this goes to the idea that there's really two types of technologies you need to develop. The incremental, taking your existing technology, making the next generation product. But that eventually can lead to a dead end, as we'll talk about in a moment. You need to, at the same time, develop disruptions, breakthroughs, things that create entirely new opportunities for your company and opportunities for growth. Breakthroughs inevitably generate not just one opportunity. Name a breakthrough that just ended there. Breakthrough generates many opportunities. How do we identify those opportunities and develop those quickly? A major problem, this is a study that McKinsey did. Lux Research did a very similar study, ended up with a similar result. What we found consistently is it takes about 20 years from invention to significant revenue. This is true in new materials. It turns out it's very true in software, very true in pharmaceuticals, very true in integrated circuits. This is a problem. And so you look at it and say, how do we get support for those foundational technologies, those major advances we need, when it takes 20 years to generate significant revenue for it? Why does it take this long? Can we shorten this period of time? So there's something called the Cynefin framework. Don't know if you're familiar with it. I'd like to go through this really quickly. This is the reason we found that it takes 20 years. There's 5 types of problems that you have. One is clear. These are highly constrained, well-defined. Life is good. Six Sigma, standard new process introduction, new technology or new product introduction, new technology introduction work really well for clear problems. Next are complicated problems. This is where we have governing constraints. The problem is difficult to solve, but it can be well defined. It's not dependent on the rest of the ecosystem. These are tightly coupled, good practices, DFSS, Six Sigma, TRLs, stage gate processes work really well for complicated problems. These processes, though, fail as we go to complex problems. In complex problems, we have a lot of interaction between the pieces. You can't just work on one piece without understanding how it affects the others. These have enabling constraints loosely coupled. They're emergent practices. And we do have approaches for dealing with this, like lean startup working towards an MVP or agile scrum. But think of applying agile, scrum, lean startup to a disruptive breakthrough. What happens? We just defined a 20-year cycle. So we need faster processes for breakthrough innovations. And lastly, chaos. I'm sorry, second to last, chaos. And what I've added to this is chaos comes with disruption or new paradigms. Why is that? Because in a new paradigm, it's a new way of thinking. How quickly does your organization switch from the old way of thinking to the new way of thinking? It can take a long time. So new paradigms generate chaos, and there's very little guidance on how you manage a new paradigm. The usual advice is just make a decision. Well, that's helpful, but not that helpful. Challenges, incremental is to the right, breakthroughs are in the left. And so as an organization, you need to be agile to know where is the problem. And that's the fifth type of problem, which is you don't know where you are. That's the question mark in the center. So having the organization first be able to have that conversation, decide where are we on this map, and how do we organize and develop best practices to manage that. We think of a lot of the strategies out in the marketplace, and we see a fundamental problem. This is kind of the AI summary of blue ocean strategy. You're all very familiar with this, I'm sure. Think of it, it takes ideas and divides it into, really there's one type of new idea. It's in the blue ocean, it's space that has not been explored. And you have the red ocean where it's full of competitors. And this doesn't really help you differentiate between an incremental idea and a breakthrough idea. So let's look at those ideas and look at how we can identify what type of idea we have early on. So first, in evolutionary ideas, what we found is there's really two types. One is something where everybody knows it. We call this hype incremental. So if you think of, you have a new idea for a social media platform, what makes you think you're the only person that's ever thought of this idea? It's a hyped, very crowded space. Lots of people thinking the same thing. Hidden evolutionary, something where for whatever reason, people aren't doing this. And plasma display is a great example of that. It was invented in 1970s, I believe, 60s in University of Illinois. Ended up creating a lot of products for half dozen manufacturers, but we don't really have plasma displays anymore. That ended. Then we have ideas that don't just have one outcome. And so we know the story of European walking through the woods and having cockleburs sticking to their socks. And he said, what's going on? Why is this sticking to my socks? And this came up with the idea of a hook and loop fastener. And this was developed with nylon after about 20 years, sure enough, 10 to 20 years. This ended up in everything from children's shoes to spacesuits. But think of Velcro today versus 50 years ago, 40 years ago. It hasn't really changed. And so this is something we call a closed platform. Open platforms, on the other hand, are major disruptions that keep on growing. So we think of silicon micromachining, which is why a lot of us are here. That has really expanded beyond semiconductors to a host of applications. And it's open because it's continually growing. In fact, my startup with my partner, we're actually focusing on microfluidics leveraging silicon micromachining. So this area keeps on growing. So we have two classes of ideas, evolutionary, which can be hyped or hidden. We have platforms which can be closed or open. And so we can create a new map of what this looks like. Plus we can put axes on the map. Market needs can go from articulated, the customer's asking for it, to unarticulated. Customer doesn't know they need it yet, or they don't know what's possible to do. Technology can go from existing to emerging. And we have the coastline, but it's not nice and smooth, it's bumpy. You know, oftentimes have hyped areas where lots of people are thinking the same thing. Why do people attract to that area? It's because you have social confirmation. You're doing this because other people are doing this, and it's comfortable. Doing hidden is really difficult to do because nobody else is doing it. What do you know that others don't? We have opportunities that are inland that could have been done a long time ago, but for whatever reason weren't. Post-it note is another great example of a inland closed platform. Created tape, flags, notes, quite a few products, but it really hasn't changed in the last 30 years. Then we have open innovation like MEMS that created a whole host of opportunities and are continuing to expand 360 degrees. So as an inventor, as you look at your idea, it's very important to know where are you on this map because your strategy is going to change dramatically. Look at one final open platform. This was Roger Appledorn, who I knew very well at 3M. He came up with the idea of replacing heavy glass lenses for overhead projectors with thin stamped Fresnel plastic lenses. And this revolutionized overhead projectors. Look at where the overhead projection lens went, and look at this. This modified over half dozen industries in major ways. And you see this every day in everything from traffic signage to traffic lights to adhesives to sandpaper. And this platform continues to grow. We're starting to use this in semiconductors. What is it we don't like about this, though? Look at the timeline. We're back to these 20-year cycles, decades. And so if you're an inventor, you better do this early in your career because it's going to take decades to find out how this unfurls. So you ask some questions. Could you put yourself back in Roger's position back in 1964? How many of these applications could you have predicted? Second is look at the timeline. Can we accelerate this? Can we take something that takes 20 years and do it in 2 or 3? And lastly, is this even possible anymore? Because fast followers are so well funded. I was working with friends. They launched a brand new technology into a marketplace. They spent 2 years focusing on that market. After 2 years, they were ready to expand into adjacent markets. They couldn't because competitors had already identified that space and occupied it. So I don't even think this type of map's possible anymore without accelerating the innovation. So this was the question, our hypothesis going into this. Let's run the test. The approach we're going to use is something we call a leap method. First is, oftentimes you don't talk to sponsors and leadership about your crazy ideas. We think that's a really bad idea. You really want to engage sponsors and leaders as early as possible, why you think this idea could be disruption and why you think this is important, and make them part of the team. Second is you have 3 different skill sets in managing the technology. One is a scout navigator. This is somebody that's really good at thinking outside the box, looking at a lot of different technologies. They use first principle thinking of saying this is not just a hypothesis. They have a concrete reason why we think we can make this product and why customers would buy it. And the reason they have this confidence is because they've been through this many, many times. Next are the explorers, and this is something we're developing AI assistants for, of course, to accelerate the innovation process. They're really good at exploring space inside the box. Once the scout has identified it, they are great at expanding it. So they can take this idea, test it. If it's a breakthrough, name a breakthrough again that can only generate one opportunity, prove it by showing where could this go, and use first principle logic as to why we think we can get there. And then lastly, what's a roadmap? We can't do all these options. What are we going to do first, second, and third? And what is our vision? Where are we working towards? How do we get there as quickly as possible? So this is the LEAP methodology. That's a very inclusive thing, and it requires lots of skills, but let's try it out. And so what we did is we identified 3 opportunities that we thought were breakthrough platforms. So one was 3D ICs. This is the mid-90s. So we knew this was going to become important, and we said, let's start developing the technologies for it. Next was fly-by-wire manufacturing. So this is taking the idea of digital twins, but doing this on steroids, where the digital twin actually took control of the line, which is very uncomfortable for manufacturing even today. But we said this is the way to go because we're going to have much better control of the systems. And the third one was multi-layer optical film. So we chose multi-layer optical film. We spent 2 weeks mapping where this technology could go and what the roadmap would be. And we shared this with our sponsor. So this is what the idea was. We could co-extrude optical layers very precisely. Our prediction was we could get to sub-nanometer precision in a co-extruded product. At the time, the belief was you could not co-extrude films accurately. We looked at it from a first principle perspective and said, why not? As you go to thin layers, the bulk properties are no longer dominated, it's interfacial properties. So as you think about those layers, you can't have low viscosity polymers flow independent of the adjacent high viscosity polymer. Next issue was the brightness theorem. And this was causing our customers to not ask for the product because they were being taught it's not possible. Third was Brewster's law, which says you can make a good mirror at 0 degrees, but it becomes a very poor mirror off angles. And last, we had no markets. No customer was asking for this. We had first principle reasons for explaining why each of these were not applicable to our system. So the first product was dual brightness enhancement film. We got a lot of pressure to focus and finish on that product because it was such a great market that really revolutionized LCDs. But we set aside a certain fraction of our team to look at where could this go, identifying that, filing patents. We filed ultimately over 150 patents in this area. And by identifying the areas, we accelerated the development and growth of these. Our reason for acceleration was partially to generate more revenue, but also to anticipate competition. Sure enough, that came. We had universities, we had 2 industry consortiums, we had customers filing lots of IP, we had ITIC actually trying to design around this, and they did a phenomenal job. I'm very impressed, sincerely, looking at this technology and looking for the holes and where we were going. I met with the woman that was leading that. We're very, very impressed. But you're going to have stiff competitive response for your technology. So we're developing new technologies and methodologies for dealing with complex problems. Scouting, which I talked about, the LEAP methodology, which we shared. As you go to chaotic systems, first principle approach, we teach that now. That's not something that's well taught as how do you actually do it. And so this is a core part of our skill in applying LEAP methodology. So just concluding, I'm hoping you're convinced ideas are not a dime a dozen. Ideas are not all the same. Ideas really do matter. And in a group of ideas, anywhere from about 1 out of 100 to 1 out of 10 of your ideas are breakthroughs. Identifying which of those are breakthroughs is really important early on. Know the difference. Second is if you have a breakthrough, you want to put together a high-performing team. This makes all the difference. And the good news is if you have a breakthrough, it is much easier to create the high-performing team and they're much more sustainable. We've had high-performing teams last for over a decade, continually advancing and redefining products. One of the things we found is depth and breadth of skills, collaboration are really core skills of the team that you want to bring in. Teaching the team first principle thinking is something that's critical. And so where my startup is really focused on is tools and trainings for identifying, developing Scouts navigators. Scout stays with the technology for the whole process, explorers, and first principle thinking. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Andrew, for a very inspiring sharing. Thank you once again. Please kindly return to your seats. So turning innovations into repeated skills is exactly what we need to learn today. So we've heard many times about global collaboration since YP to Olivier and to Andrew. So upcoming next, we'll put together a panel discussion to walk you through about co-investment, about some of the leading ventures. How do they do global tech investment? How do they do global collaboration at this really critical era of AI? So the panelists and moderators are some of the very active ventures in the industries. So I think it's one in a lifetime opportunity that we get to learn from so many industry leaders and industry ventures. Let me introduce our panelists first before they come onto the stage to dive deeper into the discussion. So for this panel, we have our moderator, Mr. Jeremy Lai, who is the venture associate at Plug and Play Taiwan. Now we can welcome Jeremy onto the stage. Joining him, our fellow panelists, first speaker, Mr. Andy Lombard, the founder and managing partner of Tesoro Venture Capital. Let's welcome Andy. Mr. Hayato Okubo, the senior manager of Plug and Play Japan. Mr. Simon Fong, the co-founder and partner of Darwin Ventures. Simon, onto the stage. Last but not least, Mr. Walter Liu, the investment principal at Applied Ventures. Walter, please. So, Jeremy, do you have a mic already? All right. A round of applause to our speakers on the stage. Jeremy, the floor is yours.
Awesome. I think there's so many great inspiring speech earlier this morning. And one of the biggest takeaway that I have, the famous line, right? It takes a village to raise a venture. And so today we want to focus on just one single, simple, but actually complicated topic is how do we build an ecosystem that can facilitate and accelerate the growth of hard tech startups. So building the hard tech startup is hard, right? You no longer just need an MVP, go to the customer and sales channel like how you do in a B2B SaaS, a typical traditional B2B SaaS, right? You need ecosystem support, you need a great technology, you need the customers, you need partnerships, and you may even need strategic partners, not just corporates, but even government support. So I have a great lineup of village builders today with me. So before we start the discussion, I would love each of you to give a short discussion of who you are, what you do, and where you are at. So I'll start with Andy.
Thanks so much, and thanks to the speakers. I was enthralled by all of your talks. It was fantastic. Had a lot to learn there. My name is Andy Lombard. We are Tesoro Venture Capital. We're an AI accelerator and semiconductor accelerator based in Phoenix, Arizona. We've had the very good fortune to partner with TSMC and Cadence Design Systems and others that are building out in Arizona. We're also a venture fund. We're growing our $250 million fund. It's gone very, very fast, as everyone is talking about. We now have 30 portfolio companies from around the world. We started to lean into Taiwan as one of our key ecosystems and now expanding into Korea and Japan, in Asia, and also working with Europe. So we have a lot to collaborate on, and two of our startups are here today, and really proud of them as well. Thank you.
So hello everybody, my name is Hayata from Plug and Play Japan. And first of all, thank you so much for inviting me to this panel. It's my pleasure to be part of this panel. Basically, I belong to Plug and Play, which is a Silicon Valley-based venture capital and accelerator headquartered in the US. And I belong to Japan office. And what we do at Japan office is basically two things. We make an investment into seed to early stage startups. So we operate our own fund, which is about 40 million USD. And 80% is dedicated to Japanese startups and 20% is dedicated to overseas startups. And the fund is backed by major Japanese banks and also industrial players from Japan, including Toyota. And the other thing we do is the open innovation platform. So basically we connect global startups to Japanese and Taiwanese large corporations for collaborations. And I myself is in charge of deep tech, which covers like advanced materials, semiconductors, and manufacturing processes, technologies. So I'm very interested in Taiwanese market and also the US and having cross-border collaboration. So very excited to discuss with all the panelists and also the participants here today. Thank you.
My name is Simon Fong. I'm the co-founder of Darwin Venture. My other co-founder, we met each other at school. We were both doing PhD at Stanford back in early 90s. We're all semiconductor by training. but the fund was funded in around 2009, and we're pretty diversified among all applications. Half our portfolio are software, the other half are deep tech, materials, all that. We do have an office in Japan. Today, about 70% of our portfolio in Taiwan, but we do want to expand our horizon to Japan. So we spend a lot of time trying to stimulate the collaboration between Taiwan and Japan. Thank you.
My name is Walter. I along with my colleagues here, YP, represent the Applied Ventures, which is a CVC arm of Applied Materials. So we invest in deep tech semiconductor. So myself, focusing on photonic, AI accelerators, advanced packaging. Those are my core areas of investment. So I joined Applied Ventures about 3 years ago. So previously I worked at MediaTek Capital and invest in semiconductors. So all of my 7 portfolio companies, there are 2 that are either IPO or going through IPO process. And half of them already exit or partial exit. So really great to be part of this panel discussion and then share what CVC's perspective, innovation and enabling these startups in this space.
Great. So thank you for the introduction. And Walter, technical issue. So Walter, I actually want to start with you. So you at Applied Venture look at so many kind of technical startups. And at the early stages, I kind of feel like it's really hard to tell whether this technology or products can actually scale and mature in a deployable environment, right? So from your perspective, what evidence shows that it is ready for real customer workflows, productions, real world deployment, whereas some technology might be, there's still a gap that needs to be prepared?
Yeah. Applied Material, we're a little bit, we're a equipment vendor for semiconductors. So our customers are TSMC, Samsung, Intel. But in addition to that, we also, in our CPO organization or in our BUs, have products. So not only we have seen previous cases where chemicals or materials, will be successful or not, but also we have a product that we want to develop in the future, sell it to the customers. So we see a lot of these cases where, a startup with an idea, has gone through this path of success or not. For example, we have one case talk about gallium nitride based, MOSFET, for solid state circuit breakers. It requires a new tool, but we know that at the end of the day, is there customers willing to buy this specialty tool, deviate from their normal manufacturing process or normal the way to build other applications. So that gives us an insight of how this startup or this new innovation path may be successful or not. Another example is that we're looking at CPO, where we also have an optical interposer. So we know the customer's requirement and timeline, which is critical. For other startups that we use that as a leverage. For the startups, I think it's good to just focus on the core differentiation and also the market size and be able to get the early feedback from the customers by getting into proof of concept. I think that's a way to do it. And then, work with the CVC to get those feedbacks.
Yeah, right. So feedback is very important, definitely. And Simon, I think next question to you, from a pure financial VC aspect, right? What is an acceptable technology risk versus one that you just step away from?
I mean, the nature of the business in Taiwan are pretty much the contract manufacturing, and the industry is highly disintegrated. So pretty much, every component, every subsystems, you are able to find a world leader. Even these companies are small. And a lot of time we're spending a lot of time to talk to these industrial leaders to understand the need of new technologies and understand the technology roadmap and try to source or scout the right team, to these new applications. So that's pretty much what we do. But our weakness is, let's say we're investing a lot of software SaaS company. The whole market in Taiwan is too small. So that's something we're still struggling, for the AI, for example, we don't have a large domestic market to incubate our own large language model, for example. So that's something we are still trying to figure out what to do. That's why we go to Japan,
Got it. So, Andrew, a question to you. So, building a hard tech startup, it's not as simple, right? Like, it's not that you have a product, you find your market, and you sell. And you need a lot of partners to support you. And I think your experience building an ecosystem in Arizona and Taiwan speaks to that. So, as the early stage founders, as they navigate through this kind of partnership, resource allocating conundrum, I would say that. What makes a founder effective at navigating that? What is a great approach to that?
Yeah, thanks for that question. I think it's a great one. One of the things that we have found with our founders and many founders that we've talked to is they're not generally failing because of the technology. I think they are failing because sometimes they don't align the ecosystem. So the concept of it takes a village. You have to quickly get validation at many, many points of ecosystem partners. You can create a fantastic technology that cannot be manufactured very quickly. So now you're talking about that 20-year cycle again. So I think the big thing with the outstanding founders that we try to attract, not only do they have the technology, but they're open to getting feedback from the ecosystem and determine their readiness at every single level. So that's why we've partnered with TSMC and Apple Computer and NVIDIA and Cadence and others, and we will continue to proliferate these partnerships all over the world, because not one group, not one PhD is going to figure out that solution yet, but we have to then have those validation points as we move along. So I think aligning with the ecosystem, getting those technologies validated very quickly, and being able to look at it as a company building process, not just that specific product.
Okay, and to Hayata, I think you're doing similar work, right? Plug and play, we connect startups with a lot of corporate partners to help them validate the technology. But oftentimes here comes the issue of prioritization, because you're a small team of 5. You don't have that much resources to go and search for to do all the things that you wanted. So in terms of prioritization, what would you recommend the founders do?
Yeah, I think technology validation is the very important thing, and especially for AI, it's not about just finding direct customers. It's, as he said, it's building an ecosystem. You need to get the technology validation from the supply side, which is more like a Japanese companies or TSMC foundries, and also the customer side, like hyperscalers or maybe, I don't know, data center operators. So we need to have both. We need to have technology validations from the both side. I think that would be the key for this next AI era startup.
Got it. And also to you, Hayata, so your experience working in Japan, right? I think there's this kind of stereotype of Japanese corporation. They move slow, they're conservative, they don't really like to work with startups, et cetera, et cetera. From your experience, what is the actual insight from working with so many Japanese corporations? How can a startup founder actually kind of break through that wall and be effective?
Yeah, that's a good point. So it's true that Japanese companies play a very critical role in the AI, especially hardware ecosystem. That is true, but it's also true that it's very difficult to work with. So maybe in terms of the preparations that I can recommend for the startups that are willing to work with Japan, I can say one thing probably. So maybe not just bring a big vision or dream, but be more like a concrete. So proposing concrete ideas with practical and technical information to reduce the communication kind of internal communication risk within a company. So two reasons for that. So one is Japanese companies are very excellent at solving technical challenges that are given by customers or partners, but they are not always good at building something new from scratch or finding innovative applications by themselves. So you got to be very clear, like what you want to do, and what kind of benefit you can bring to the Japanese company. So that's one. And the second thing is the Japanese hierarchical kind of organizational structures. So basically, it's very complex company structure. So even if your amazing pitch inspired the person in front of you, that person needs to circulate the information, document the information across the different positions, different layers. So your enthusiasm or your technology may be conveyed in a different ways, and it may get stuck in a kind of internal communication process. So being clear and proposing the concrete ideas and helping that person, that champion, to reduce the internal communication risk and cost would be very important for startups to work with Japanese companies, based on my experiences.
Thank you for that insight. And Walter, kind of back to you, because you're coming from CVC angle, right?
Yeah.
From that angle perspective, what should a founder understand early? So when they start to work with CVC, start to do the validation, start to do the partnership, they can get prepared to make that relationship productive and effective.
I think it's for a startup, you really have to focus on your core differentiation, and also the market size. Of course, before you approach to a CVC, you already know their core business. A match will be a good thing. But really, your core technology, what do you differentiate against other startup in this space, and also the opportunity presented at hand. And with Applied Ventures, we're able to find the strategic fit because we have a wide portfolio of different products, different technologies, and just bring to a partnership, to these potential portfolio companies, and be able to find, either a quick, acceleration of your idea, reducing the cycle time, reducing the chasm, when you cross it, and be able also to work with you, with our VC partner, if Apply cannot help. So we're a partner with TSMC Tech Alliances, Intel Capital, Samsung Ventures, Samsung Catalyst. A portfolio or a VC partner can help together and bring your ideas to products.
Got it. Simon, I want to talk a little bit about kind of international market expansion a little bit. So in Taiwan, obviously small market. So a lot of Taiwanese startups are trying to go abroad, do the expansion. But expansion is never easy, right? As Hayata told, right? For example, going to Japan, working with a Japanese corporate, there are a lot of things that you need to be aware of. So as a startup going abroad, they need to navigate market, the partners, the customers, the localizations, even hiring the team. So when they kind of navigate through this kind of sequencing, what are some of the key insights that you can share that the founders need to be aware of? What do they need to kind of plan for in order for that expansion to be successful?
I mean, if you look at the success of the Taiwanese industry in the past, it's pretty much all B2B component. All the founders, they know who their customers are. Samsung, Apple, whoever, these companies. But when you come to the B2C type of business, you have to pick a right market, And a lot of our startup company go to Southeast Asia, no mention, some of them go to China, some will try US, some will try Japan. After like 10 to 15 years of experiment, we kind of figured out some company going to Japan has higher success rate. And the reason is very simple. I mean, U.S. you require the capital requirement is very high. You know, for the startup company raise money in Taiwan cannot be survived in U.S. the major market, and even China. But in Southeast Asia are very fragmented. So you're successful in Vietnam, no guarantee in Philippines, no guarantee in Indonesia, and Japan is probably the single country big enough and very complementary to Taiwan. You know, and we also understand the culture. So our strategy is we work with the local people and we work with the local VC. And myself even become the LP of I think I did 5 funds already. So through that kind of relationship, you start to penetrate into the ecosystem, get to know the people. And we have a Japanese partner, you know, understand the culture, deep inside the culture. So I think that people is most critical, most important. Yeah.
And to you, Andy, so you kind of built this ecosystem between Arizona and then Taiwan, and you're also working on investment in Korea as well. So when you connect these ecosystems together, what are some of the biggest issues, or I say common mistakes that founders usually makes when they kind of hop through these ecosystems and trying to do these expansions?
Yeah, I think I'll piggyback off of a lot of the comments. I think the biggest issue is underestimating the difficulty of entering into a new market, a new geography, especially the United States. So many of my founders from Korea and Taiwan underestimate the differences, the very, very strong contrast of how a US VC looks at something versus how they're communicating it. So I think that's number one. Preparing for that, to build on what Walter was saying before, many, many times founders, not just in Asia, but all over, including Silicon Valley, have too wide of a thesis. They don't have a wedge. They don't have a focus. They don't have a pure vision of how that specific answer, that specific wedge is going to make a difference. And the other side is that wedge needs to be something that's not 3 years from now. It has to be a future solution that's going to last the next decade or two. It has to be something large enough to go through that. So I think really defining it takes a lot to go into a new market, underestimating that's something that we try to specialize in, helping companies figure out the US market, how to communicate to US VC and do that. Last point is, I think they fail at understanding that it's going to be multiple players. Like Oliver's group in imec is going to play a difference sometimes to actually validate a solution. So one of our startups is from Rice University, Hex Aspect, comes from Houston. We sent him here to talk with eTree to validate a thermal material and work with Cadence to use their software to model this and to simulate it. So I think these types of things, you have to use a global partnership. Just the opposite. Lixil Communications has done a great job in Taiwan hospital systems with an image device. Now, how do we get that into the US and get that into the Mayo Clinic? So I think we're starting to make those types of processes. So taking Korean companies, putting them into the US market, and taking US companies and making sure that they get great validation and tools from all over the world. I think this is the ecosystem that needs to be created to build these companies quicker, better, and with lower risk.
Right. I want to dive a little bit into the competition aspect of it, right? Because it is very rare that one startup doing one thing and you're the only one in the world tackling that problem, right? Usually there are competitions, especially when you go into a bigger market like US. For founders coming from smaller markets, like say Korea, Taiwan, sometimes Japan, maybe. Japan is kind of the mid-size out there. How should they treat the competition layer to it, especially say a partnership, the execution layer, especially when you're not from the local area, you go into it, you need to think about localization, you need to even get used to the business culture to it, you need to do hiring. So a lot of these kind of front load preparation, from my observation, kind of stop these startups from actually going into the execution mode of the market. So how can they prepare for it?
Well, I mean, the beautiful thing now is that you can do phenomenal research. You should know exactly what's going on in your market and be able to pinpoint great solutions, and then why your solution is going to have a distinctive, competitive, unique advantage that's going to last. So I think that's critical. We also really respect intellectual property. I think having patents helps that process a lot. So if you're patented, you know that you've gone through the process. You've actually identified that. It's not so much the protection side of that, there is that, but it's also the identification of where other solutions are out there, because to do a good patent, you're going to need to realize what other competition is looking at as well. So I think that's important. But we're blessed now with the internet, and we can research this. We can become very knowledgeable very quickly on your competitive threats.
Right. Okay, so coming to my last question for all four of you, actually. What do you think will define the strongest hard tech ecosystem over the next few years? And how would you build it if you were the one doing it right now? I'll start with Walter.
Could you repeat the question?
Oh, yeah. So what will define the strongest hard tech ecosystem in the future? And how would you build it if you're the one doing it right now?
Build that hard tech. I think it's ability, for example, you're developing a new technology or a new product, be able to first find out your differentiation and be able to partner with a different members of the supply chain. Think about how do you go to market, how do you about building a product market fit, and be able to work with the key, identify the key member of that value chain and work with them very early, and then also be open-minded for pivoting. So I think it's good for the founders to think ahead what kind of partner you're building. It could be, specifically a corporation. It could be from your board level. But you need to think about this ahead of the time and then have a roadmap, a plan before you, start to burning investments, investors' money, and then, sacrifice the resource. Yeah. So.
Today we are still leveraging our strengths in the supply chain, but I think this is going to be good for another 3 to 5 years. Because I think the academia, the strength of academia in Taiwan is not that solid. That's why we're going to Japan. Japan is still the top 2 country winning Nobel Prize. Pretty much every year there's a Nobel Prize winner from Japan. And but Taiwan is the strength in Taiwan. We are the first fast adopter. We move things very fast. So we'll try to see. We actually find it very complementary between Taiwan and Japan. Like, for example, quantum computing. This is an area we're very serious about it, but we don't really see a very good teams in Taiwan. But we do see a lot of very strong, very good researchers in Japan. So we'll try to see whether there's a chance for mutual collaborations. And on the other hand, we actually found a lot of very interesting technology embedded in a spin-off from Japanese university. One of good example, we help a 10 years old startup company spin off from Tohoku University, help them to get into the one of the large semiconductor company in Taiwan. So they have been trying for like 3-5 years, but never been able to talk to the right people. But through our connection, we'll be able to make the bridge. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad that Simon is a big fan of Japan. We hope to collaborate with you more. And yeah, from my side, I would say, as he mentioned, I think regional resilience in the AI supply chain would be a key for the ecosystem, especially for AI training. I think it's all about scale and mostly what's happening in the US. But of course, it will still remain important. But for the AI inference, what YP also mentioned, so I think it's going to be an era of AI inference. Then AI inference definitely accelerates the decentralization of the resources as it requires the faster response and more data privacy. So which means we have to build up the resilient supply chains and secure energy sources in the region, regional or maybe at the regional level or national level. So collaboration across maybe Taiwan, Japan, Korea, probably US, we can bring different strengths. Like, for example, Japan can bring reliability, Taiwan can bring scalability, and US can bring the huge market access. So I think our alliance will definitely power the next wave of innovations, and we can create a strong future together.
Yeah, I love that. I double this, I +1 all of that. I think the idea, if you haven't got it yet, even from Jensen Huang's discussion on Monday, not one company is going to do this. Not one region, not one country, not one entity can do it, not one university. So it's about connected ecosystems. It's not about isolated. And I think the founders that win today are going to take great technologies and advance those and align those through ecosystems very rapidly. Those are the ones that are going to build quickly and they're going to have the most success that come forward. And I would even say the ones that don't do that are not going to be successful today. It is too complicated. It's going to take thousands of these companies to build this ecosystem, and you have to play with that. So I think it's about identifying your strengths and how you're going to match that with the incredible partners that are very, very willing to open up their capabilities. I mean, I've had the very good fortune to sit on the stage with TSMC, Amkor, Cadence, Apple, all saying and leaning forward into new companies, new startups, and generating ideas like Applied is doing with their Epic Center and imec does for so many years. So I think the whole goal now is to unify that and make sure that any founder that looks at a new solution is driving that path. That team has got to drive that path. So connected, aligned, not isolated, and grow the markets as quickly as possible.
The collaborative approach is going to help it win. So round of applause for all the great panelists here, please. And thank you so much for listening to the panel. Thank you.
And thank you, Jeremy, for leading this dialogue and discussion. Thank you once again to our speakers on stage. Thank you. All right, so I guess every one of us has learned valuable insights from this masterclass of global collaboration. So this concludes the AI Compute Arena Forum. So we will now invite you to stay and enjoy the networking session. Thank you all for joining.